Welcome to another episode of the Enlightened Musician Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Light, and today's episode is going to be a little different than usual. Recently, I got invited to moderate a talk on EPKs, aka electronic press kits, at the Nashville Songwriters Association International Winston-Salem, North Carolina chapter's monthly meeting. Wow, that is a mouthful. With my good friend, Mike Bennett. Mike owns Professor B Studios, which specializes in video production and live streaming services. His studio has been involved in projects for companies such as Corning, Ralph Lauren, and the band Heart, just to name a few. In his free time, you will see him doing what he loves most, a bi-weekly live stream series that features local artists called Sweet Bee. So let's jump into this EPK discussion.
So, as Lauren said, my name is Mike. I'm Mike Bennett. I own Professor B Studios. So, the past 5 years, full-time, I've just been running my studio. And the dream was to do the things that I love with the people that I love doing it for under one roof. And that the people that I love doing it for is local musicians. That's who I work with more than anybody else. Whether it's photography, video stuff, interview stuff. I mean, we do corporate work, we do nonprofit stuff, we do a lot of different things from a client base, but we focus on local musicians. So any chance that we have to bring local musicians into our studio, we do. We created an entire show that there's no money attached to other than what we front that airs every other week on our Facebook page just so that I can get musicians to come to my studio. Not from a marketing standpoint, that's a fringe benefit of it, but just because I like hanging out with them. I want to hear the stories, I want to hear the songs, and we're pretty strict about it's got to be original music, and it's got to be I want those things. And some of that came from the time where I was hosting an open mic night at a venue, and I just it was nightly. I'd get, 15, 20 different musicians would come through, and I was like, this is it. But I can't make a career out of open mic night host. That's not a thing. So how do I bring that to me? That's our show. Well, the deeper into it I got, the more I realized that a lot of people would piecemeal what they needed together to be successful in what they were doing. And the more they would talk about the things that they needed, the more I realized we had a lot of that under our roof. So the reason I'm here today is to talk specifically about one of those things, which is EPKs, also known as electronic press kits. Now, the background of press kits in general is think about it as the most accurate, concise, best showing Wikipedia page you could ever write. It's your information as accurate and shown in the best possible light as you could put together. An EPK is not simply a video. A video is a component of an EPK. The press kit is larger than that, and the E part just means electronic. Old press kits would be the folder, and here's the DVD and the this and the that. Here's my stuff, and you travel around and hand these or put them in the mail or whatever. Works a little different now. So the reason I'm talking about these today is because there's a bit of a misunderstanding that I think partially what it is, but then also why you need it. So what it is what I just said, but what it is more specifically is kind of this packet of things that includes your picture or pictures, but just a few. Your bio, clean and concise. Who are you? What do you do? Your best foot forward as far as music, and it's not an embedded Spotify playlist. It's hopefully either an embedded, if it's living on your website, an embedded player or a link to SoundCloud, something that doesn't require the people that are watching it to download something extra to be able to view it. Because that's a big tripping point is if you send something to me and I look at it and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to need to put that PDF on something else because I can't look at it on this device because it's going to be too small and I don't want to read it there. And I've got to sign up for Spotify to listen to your music. And by the time I'm 3 steps in, I'm not listening to your stuff. And it doesn't matter how good you are. If I don't get over the hurdles of looking at your information, the rest of it doesn't matter. So how accessible is it? How easy is it for me to view what you have? What platforms are you actually hosting your stuff on? And how is it hosted? I was watching a video earlier today because I looked earlier because I've been doing this for a while, but I looked earlier just to see what do I need in my EPK? Is that something that you would search on YouTube? And then I watched the first 3 or 4 videos. And not only were the production qualities, except for one of them was pretty good, they were pretty low, which surprised me. Because it's like, if you're telling people that they need your photography services or your video services or this or that, like, I would never try to sell you guys on website design, because I'm not a website designer. And if you go to my website, you'll know that. But I might try to sell you photography services because I can show you the pictures I've taken. I might try to sell you on video services because I can show you the videos I've created. So we've got people talking about production stuff, and it's just like, but what I found in a lot of that stuff was that a lot of them were just shouty. You got to do this. You need to have that, over and over and over again. And there wasn't a lot of education to it, which was a little off-putting, because for musicians who are, if someone just said, and I don't know where you guys are, I don't know most of the people in this room real well. I know a couple of you. So I don't know really where you are in this journey or where you are in approach. I don't know if you, how many of you already have an EPK put together? Okay, so two. Or if you've considered it, or if you're currently looking at it, or if you're trying to figure out what it is and why it's important. But there are venues that won't book you unless you have an EPK to present. If you just send a general email, and it can be a very well-written email. Hey, I'm such and such. I want to play at your place. I want to do this. This is the kind of stuff I do, blah, blah. Very nice descriptor. They're going to look at it and go, no examples, only the effort it took to write an email. Like, it may not even get past that point. So there's a piece of it that is an investment, that it's how much have you put into showing yourself. Like for people who want to play out, and whether you want to play out or write for other people or whatever it is that you want to do, if you're not showing that you've invested, if you don't have something that you can show other people that you've invested into it, then a lot of time they're not going to think that you took it seriously or that you're taking it seriously. And so what ends up happening is you end up in this place where a fairly popular venue in the area might get 100 emails in a week of people who want to play there. And it's everyone from people who have been playing their entire life to the bedroom musician who just picked up a guitar 2 weeks ago and just feels like they've got a knack for it. But they're going to get 100 emails in a week. What makes yours stand out? What makes yours different? Why are they going to look at that 100 and pick yours above or beside one of the other ones? It being well written is going to be a part of it. But them having the things that they're looking for, if they don't have to do all of the legwork to figure out who you are because it's all right there for them. This is what they look like. Here's an example of them playing somewhere live. Here's a headshot so I know kind of what they look like and how they present themselves. Here's a produced video to show what they are, what they can put together when they really do it. And here's a list of their 3 most viewed songs. Oh, and here's a few accolades. Here's a few people who have written up things about them. Here's a testimony about from another venue that they played. I have all of that in one place. That sets you apart from everything else. Now, I don't do all of that. I don't do social media management. It's not my world, and people who know me well will attest to that. That is not my thing. But of all of the things on that list, I do the photo part and I do the video part. So those things I know more about, but I do know what goes into the rest of the packet and why it's important. So if the goal is to set yourself apart, then you have to make that investment, whether it's time, financial, whatever it is. Now, I mean, we're in a day and an age where like half the people in the room might be walking around with a 4K camera in your pocket because of what cell phones can do these days. And that's not to put myself out of business. I'm not in business to try to get money from every musician in Winston-Salem. I'm in business to do my part to help the people that are willing to come to me for help or that need what we do. So this isn't, I want to be as non-sales pitchy while still being like, hey, I've got a studio, it's right there, as possible, if you kind of track with me on that. But some people, your cousin may be a photographer. Now there's a difference between your cousin owns a camera and your cousin's a photographer. Anybody with money can go own a camera. That doesn't make them a photographer, and people will spot the differences. Because what happens is when you go from the venues who are getting 100 a week, and you learn how to dominate that market because of how you've set yourself apart, now you're talking to the people who get 1,000 a week, 10,000 a week. And theoretically, it grows and it continues to go. So your EPK isn't something that you do once and it remains static. As you add to your accolades, as you update your music library, as you start to look a little different because, time's so kind to us, update your stuff. Because if you put a shot on there of you 10 years ago with a head full of hair in a suit, and you show up in blue jeans and a t-shirt looking like this, they're going to be like, that's not the guy we hired. So it's something that's a little bit organic. It's something that you keep up to date. It's something that you keep working with. Because as venues continue to book you, and they see that you're continuing to put that effort, that if you're willing to put your effort into that part to get the job, then they know you're going to put or at least they assume, you're going to put the effort into music at their venue. They know you're going to put effort into whatever element of it is that you're investing into. Now, as you put your EPK together, just like quick note kind of things, because your EPK isn't for your audience. It's not for your fan base. Your EPK is for the industry. Your EPK, for a lot of people, is a hidden page on your website. Whether it's password protected or something that's not a public link or a link on a separate, there's EPK like host sites. I can't think of any of them off the top of my head because I don't deal with the whole package, but I know there's some out there that they just do that. Lauren could probably tell you 50 off the top of her head. But like, those things aren't for everybody. It's not the landing page on your website. It's for venues. It's for people who want to write up an article about you. It's for bloggers. It's for radio show hosts. It's for, like, if you're going to come be on my show, I'd love to take a look at what you do ahead of time. Like, those kinds of things are industry stuff, and that's what your EPK is for. So as you process what you're putting in there, remember that you're putting it in there for other artists, for people who work with artists all the time, or for people that you want to book you to be able to do other things, and so on and so forth. And then the other thing that I want to mention specifically is to make sure that you're what would be called on brand. So if you come in with a certain look, and a look like if you're I'm just going to pick an example of some people who aren't here but are good friends of mine, so I'm allowed to make fun of them. So there's a kind of a countryish, kind of outlaw countryish, sometimes borderline Southern rock duo, occasionally trio, couldn't be happier, is Jordan and Jody Lee, and they're friends of mine. And I've done some work with them, so I feel okay saying what I'm getting ready to say. If they came in and said, hey, we want this like super techie looking front end with some like very modern font with this, and everything felt like clean, like everything felt like something you would find at IKEA, I would immediately have to look at them and go, okay, no. Because if you give people that, they're going to expect a certain sound. Because people will align your visual with your sound before they ever meet you in person. And so when people see that and you're trying to book somewhere that loves outlaw country, sometimes occasionally Southern rock, that every once in a while will bring an upright bass with you, groups, they're not going to get past that front page because it's going to pop up and they're going to be like, lasers? No, not these people. These aren't our people. We don't want to book them. And they never get to the point where they listen to you. So kind of be on brand. Be who you are and be honest about who you are. You don't throw out a lot of, like, and that kind of goes back to the accolades thing. Like, you can't come out with a statement and say, like, I've booked, I've packed out venues all across the triad. And if that's true because most of what you play is like 25 people capacity coffee shops, cool, but it sells a different image if you say it that way. So be careful about like super flamboyant. Like when we do the interview portion of the EPK, I always tell people like, I'm going to kind of push you a little bit as you start describing yourself because I want to make sure we're getting the real you and not the like elevator sales pitch, make you sound bigger than you are. When I first started the company, I had a lot of people say like, refer to yourself as plural. When you talk about your studio, always say like we and us because it makes you sound bigger than you are. And I was like, but it's just me. We're like, yeah, but like do that. And I'm like, okay, I get the concept, but I'm going to hold off until I actually have other people working in the studio with me. And now we've got some part-time help and some regular contractors, so I feel like I can comfortably speak in the plural and sound bigger than we were before. But it's just like when you put up that front, like it's uncomfortable because at some point, if you're successful in what you're doing, you're going to be face-to-face with that business owner, that venue owner, that booking agent, that blogger, that radio show host, whatever it is, and you're going to have to deliver on the things that you've said you do. So it's easier to just bypass all that and give them what you really are, who you really are, what you want to do, what kind of stuff you do. But then also, like, be confident in what that is. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about, like, trying to just write your biography. You're trying to sell your product. I once heard a guy, he lives out in California, he's a speaker. I remember his first name's Al. I cannot remember his last name. I just remember it was something very long in Italian. But his first name was Al. I remember that part. And he was speaking, and he said, when people invest into your music, they're investing into your philosophy. They're investing into your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, whatever you put on that page on that day, they're buying into that in some way. So present that honestly. Like if you approach it that way and you say, these people are buying into what I'm doing, okay, well then give them the real version of what you're getting. Like make sure that that's authentic and accurate and all of those things. So, having said that, and like with the on-brand stuff, that's not just making sure that things line up style-wise, but also like consistency with like colors and fonts, and you're like you don't want 3 really professional pictures and then like one your mom took at Thanksgiving one day because you happened to pick up a guitar in the corner of the room on her like flip phone. Like you don't want those 4 things up there because that's the one they're going to be drawn to because it's the one that's different, and that's how they're going to see, even from a quality standpoint, you to a degree. I had somebody, I think it was yesterday. Sorry, I just got back from vacation, and then the AC broke at the studio today. So I'm like half vacation brain, half melted. So forgive me a little bit. I'll cut that out of the video later. I was talking, so it had to have been yesterday because I've only been back for 2 days. So I was talking to somebody yesterday about their EPK stuff. And they said, well, we have all of the bio stuff, we have the pictures, we have a lot of the text-based stuff. And I said, well, how are you delivering that? They said, well, we've got it all in a PDF. I went, okay. I said, so 50 to 60%, depending on where you get your numbers of documents that are open today are opened on a cell phone. When you send your stuff to somebody, they're opening it on a cell phone. Now, if you know anything about like PDFs, Word docs, that kind of stuff, when you open it on a smartphone, it'll fit itself inside that screen. The entire document inside that screen. And if, like, it's just on some level aggravating if you have to pull up and you're like, okay, I'm going to zoom in on the first 3 words. And then you're like in typewriter mode. So you're, and you got to scroll to the next line. And that nobody wants to read it that way. By the time they're 3 lines in, they're done with your document. They don't even want to get to the part where you talk about how awesome you were and you were like, yeah, last week I was Austin City Limits and blah, blah, blah. Like, they're never going to see that because they didn't be like, hi, my name is, and they're done because they've got to zoom in so far to be able to see it. Having your stuff either in one of these hosting sites or on a website that, if it's formatted correctly, will resize itself and format itself to whatever it's opened on is one of the best way to deliver those things. And if you can't do either one of those things or just against it or just don't want to, that kind of stuff can be best delivered in an email, because it will resize itself to a form that's readable on whatever device that they're on. But we've got to get this away from this idea, like, and I don't know when Adobe brainwashed everybody. Sorry, Adobe, still want sponsorship. But like, I don't know when we got away from all that, but everybody thinks that like the best way to deliver that stuff is in a PDF. It goes in a PDF. It's better than a Word doc. And for some things, that's probably true. Not for this. So as you're delivering your stuff, think about that as well. Like how, I was at a meeting. How long ago was the meeting we were at over by Willows that we went to together?
It's been at least a couple
Month. Okay, so it's been a 6.
I do want to say something on your point about PDFs
Okay.
as well. That's actually statistically something proven.
Mm-hmm.
About 90% of emails that are sent via that have an attachment to them actually get sent to their spam folder if you're not already a contact of them. So you've probably already knocked yourself out if you email someone and have an attachment to it because you're already in the spam folder, unless they have something that's approved at most
Yeah.
hosts do that. So you've already knocked yourself completely
Yeah, and the other thing with that is when you get to the point where you're doing your own website, or if you're already there and you've got your own website, so like I've got, Mike at professorbstudios.com, because through our website we also get email services. But usually somewhere in there, and sometimes you have to pay extra for it, sometimes it's just a checkbox that you miss, but there's usually something there that talks about like making your email a verifiable address. Because what a lot of these filters and stuff will do is they'll take those out too, because like professorbstudios.com is like, as much as I'd like to think that we're a global company, we're just not. It's me and a few people doing something on Broad Street here in downtown Winston-Salem. And so like, I know that. So like when I send something to, Ralph Lauren and I'm like, hey, we'd love to shoot your next video thing, like it probably goes in their spam folder because they have no idea who I am and we're just not. But through the thing, I was able to do, through my website provider, I was able to do something that's like verifying our email, blah, blah, blah. And basically what that does is it tells all of the automated systems that like, hey, this is a real person with a real email address, even though it's not like Gmail. Like this is a real thing. They kind of back it up and you bypass some of those things. So just kind of as a side note off of that, it's a really good point. Thank you. Yes. We were in a meeting and someone had come in from out of town and we were talking about marketing tactics and that kind of thing. And it was kind of that like, okay, so you're going to go home tonight. Like, and the guy who was running the meeting was like, all right, give them 3 things they need to do when they go home. And the first thing out of his mouth was, you need to go home and you need to build a website. What? I want everybody in here to go home and build a website tonight. I'm like, no. How about not that on night 1? Like that's a lot. And then the guy at the table who had showed up with a stack of CDs to give everybody, or sell them or whatever he was doing with them, it was like these two like opposing ends of the spectrum of where we were sitting in the same room, both musicians, both singer-songwriters, both guys who were trying to make it happen within the industry. One guy's carrying around a stack of CDs, the other guy wants you to go home and make a website tonight. I'd like to fall somewhere in the middle of that and say that, if an EPK, and Lauren, you can fill in any blanks that I miss here, but if an EPK includes high resolution, good pictures, a long form bio and a short form bio in case they want to copy and paste some of that in like a tweet or on Facebook or something like that. Because some of these venues, when they book you, they'll just go grab your bio from whatever it is and put it back out. And if it's too long, then you're going to get the first little piece. And it's going to be like, and they were really amazing at, and that's where it ends because you had too much text on there. So a long form and a short form, links to your social medias, your best music, not what you like the most. Not what you're the most proud of, the things that have had the most listens, the things that numerically you can back up, people listen to your stuff the most. Your best music video or your EPK video, which I would actually recommend. If you can put both on there, put both on there. But if you've got to pick one, I'd go more like a press kit style video that has a little bit of interview and more examples of more of your songs than a single music video that only shows one. Any discography, projects, releases, that kind of stuff that you've been a part of or that you have coming up. Any media, newspapers that have written articles, magazines that have written articles, venues who have, talked about you in a positive light, preferably. Artists you've opened for, tours you've been part of. At some point, people are going to start asking you, like, when you play things that sell tickets, how many tickets do you sell? That kind of, like, how many butts do you put in the seat? Because people care about that. As you elevate to that level, that needs to be a part of it. Testimonials. And then lastly, and very much importantly, your contact info. Because if they fall in love with you, make sure they can get a hold of you. Am I missing any like key, make sure it's in there?
I would definitely talk about how long that video needs to be.
Okay, so length of video. So I'll use what we do as an example. So we've basically got 3 packages. So we do the thing like small, medium, and large. And so the shortest video we offer and what we recommend a lot of people actually do is, and these are all kind of approximates based on content, but it's around 2 minutes. And a 2-minute video is enough time to introduce yourself, talk just a little bit about you, give a few music examples, and then wrap it up at the end. So we have that. That's just a couple of minutes long. And that's a great, like something that length you could just about put on social media as well. You could use it in a lot of different form factors, but from a press kit standpoint, they're not looking to watch a short film featurette about you. They don't want to sit down with the 9-minute movie. Now we can make those if you want one, but that's not what we're doing today. So we've got that one, and then the next one we do is usually between about 4 and 5.5 minutes. And what that does is it allows for a little bit more explanation in the interview portion, and a little more of the music examples. And we try to do a mix for those who write of originals, but then also a few covers, especially if you're trying to play out. Because if you're playing out, some venues love artists who just do original music, and they have nights that are just about that. But a lot of places want to know that you have people that are going to be able to tap their foot, sing along, and order another beer while they're listening to you, because at the end of the day, it's a business and they're trying to make money and you're part of what they do. Because when you're sitting in that venue, they don't view you as factor X in the corner. They view you as part of their ambiance and what they're doing. So they're investing in you, hoping that other people will invest in them for that night. And then we have kind of the last package, which is kind of the big package, and that's the one that's kind of more custom, where we do more on location stuff, show some footage from live shows. We come out and shoot part of your actual shows and that kind of stuff. So there's a little more involved. I bring a few extra people along with, and it's a good time, but you get both videos out of that process. So you get a short and a long. And that way, if you send them the 2-minute and they're like, man, we love that, but we'd like to hear just a little bit more, you can immediately go, well, here it is. You don't have to run out and make something. You have that on hand if they ask to hear more. So from a length perspective, most people fall in that couple-minute range. The one I did, so William Neesmith, who, if you're a regular here or have just been kind of checking out local stuff here lately, his name will ring a bell. You know who he is. I did an EPK for him not too long ago, and it was funny. I wish he was here to tell the story, but he was reluctant and kind of had to be pushed, if you know William, pushed a little bit into doing it. We're working on his website stuff too, for pictures, not website design by any means. I'm clear about that. But we're doing his video stuff, and the first words out of his mouth. Now, mind you, I didn't know William super well. William was referred to me, and I knew him a little bit, but didn't know a lot. And the first words out of his mouth was, "Well, I cover like Michael Jackson and Madonna and Bruno Mars," and I went, "Whoa. Are you sure you want to say all that?" He said, "Yeah, why?" That's because a lot of people say that they cover Michael Jackson and Madonna and Bruno. Like, you're pitching pretty big right there. And then we got to the playing portion, he started playing. I went, never mind, you say whatever you want. It's good. Because that's the thing, is there was no fluff, there was no extra, there was no, like, he was saying what he did and then he did it. But if he had put that in a text-based document and couldn't back it up, people would go like, yeah, I bet you do. I don't want somebody going for those notes in my venue and not getting that. I don't want, I don't want the guy who can only kind of sort of play Stevie Wonder. But then when you see it in a video form, when you get to know him and you get his personality behind the camera, that's as big a part of it as anything else. And there's a part of that, and this was a hard truth, and William and I have had this conversation. It's not a secret thing. It's nothing that I'm saying behind his back. But we had the conversation about, like, some people are going to see this and they're going to say no. Not because you're not good at what you do, but because they're going to see what you do and they're going to know you're not the right fit for their venue. But because of that, and because of your ability to handle that, they may turn around and go, but I know the perfect spot for you. So kind of as I'm closing this out and getting out of the way so you guys can do what you're here to do, the importance of an EPK is great because it's the thing that sets you apart. If we're talking about that first 100, it takes you from being part of that 100 and puts you in the 10 that probably have an EPK out of that 100. Because there's a lot of people who just aren't doing it. I mean, in a room of people who sacrifice time and put effort into doing what they do, whether it's your full-time thing or something you do on the side or some place in between those things, there's only 2 people in the room who have an EPK right now. So think about how much more that magnifies for the people who don't come to meetings on a night to talk about songwriting and do all these other things and grow a community, who aren't invested into other groups that are in the community, who aren't doing those things in and around Winston-Salem or whatever city they're in. They're not doing it either. So as you continue to place your foot into that market, if that's something that you're trying to do, then the EPK is an important part of that. When William finishes, I'll use this as kind of the closing example. When William did his stuff, when he came to me, he said, I'm getting booked about once a week, and I'm having a hard time getting some of those. This was before he had the video. Now, this isn't a testament to my ability to make videos, but I'll be the first one to tell you I feel like I'm decent at making videos. But once William was able to show people, and with quality production, what he was able to do, he's at the point now where he's having to turn people down because he can't double book. He's not here tonight because he's booked somewhere. And that all changed when he made the video. And he called me, I think it was 2 days after we made his video, because he started sending it out immediately because he's William and he's excited. So he immediately started sending it out. And 2 days later, I got a phone call and he was like, I've already booked so much, the video's already paid for itself and then some. Thank you for making me do that. And the next time you tell Laura, say thank you for kicking me in the butt, because she was part of that conversation too. So anyway, I guess questions?
Do comments from news, because I've had some press,
Mm-hmm.
but some of it is old.
Sure.
Is there a point at which you draw the line and go, that is too far gone?
I would not from a time perspective. If the source is no longer relevant in the community, if it's going to sound made up because people don't know who it is anymore, or if they're referring to something that you don't do anymore or that isn't relevant to what you're doing now, then I would nix it. Aside from that, I mean, if I shot for Disney 20 years ago and I have something from Disney, I guarantee you right now it'd still be on my website. I was part of a project for Ann Wilson of Heart and doing a documentary on her, and we've got like IMDb credit for it. So like I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't care if it's 50 years from now, that's staying in my stuff somewhere, because that's something that you say it and they go, oh, like Barracuda. I'm like, yes. And they go, oh, okay. Like there's something to that. Doesn't matter how old it is, because I don't think there's ever gonna be a point where that's not relevant.
What do you think? If your only press quotes are really esoteric indie writers for indie outlets that nobody's ever heard of, I mean, I still use them because
Sure.
it's third person.
Yeah.
Somebody besides me saying I'm great.
And me personally, I don't put the articles there. I only put the one line,
Yeah.
or the 2 lines, and I picked 3.
Yeah. So think, you know,
So, and you can
had an amazing time, never seen a show like it. New York Times, like that. That's all you got to put on there.
I have one from a patron someone that came to the show
Mhm.
that said something about the show. I had someone from a news article that was for a bigger press, and then I have one that's for like a smaller local. And I literally just put the sentence. I don't attach the article or anything.
Sure.
You know, so I
Yeah.
think, and if you don't have anything, I wouldn't put anything.
Right. Not even put a section for it because it's going to call attention. It's going to shine a spotlight on the fact that it's not there.
It's kind of like
Right.
when you're first starting booking your shows, don't put a calendar up there if you have no shows. It's just going to completely highlight that you're not playing.
Yeah.
Don't put it there until you have them. So if you don't have press, just don't put it there. But you can already get some of these materials without playing a show or doing anything like the video concept and whatnot. You can already get that on there, the pictures as
Yeah.
well.
And if you have places that you know like you, like if you have places that you've played more than once or that you've done stuff for, I don't think it's too out of bounds to go back and be like, hey, I'm putting this thing together. Like, would you mind just doing like a review thing that I can quote? And even if it's half a paragraph, you get one good snippet out of that. Now you have something you didn't have
I go
before.
ahead and write it for them. and say, you know, this is,
Yeah.
if you agree with this, go for it.
Yeah.
I edit it
Yeah.
the way you want it, because that's from my history as a writer. People are busy.
Yep, that's why we were talking about the short form
Yep.
earlier. Most all festivals that I play never write something for me. They literally copy and paste
Yeah.
the short form.
I mean, that's what we do for our show. Like, if you've got a decent bio on your thing and you come play our show, I guarantee you that that's going to be in the description, because it's going to be like, just going to, because a lot of times I don't know the people, so I don't know what to write about them. I can tell you, you know, I've heard 5 or 6 of their songs and seen a video. I could talk about that, but I haven't met them in person. Not comfortable writing about them. But if they've got a little blurb that sounds good, I'm copy, paste, done. Here's who on our show next Tuesday or whatever.
It's like your digital resume. So as an artist, you can't just write things. People have to hear it and have to see it. So in the songwriting realm, especially hearing it, it's just a one page, one place, boom, boom, boom. This is what I do. And that's kind of what
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, done awesome.
I don't
really
know about
glad
all that.
You came by
Well, thanks.
tonight.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Enlightened Musician podcast. Make sure to visit our website, theenlightenedmusician.com, where you can subscribe to the show on your platform of choice so you'll never miss an episode. Until next time, this is Lauren Light.